In April 1861, the United States crossed a line it could never uncross. The nation that once claimed to be a single republic now stood divided by fear, anger, and unresolved sins. Families watched the sunrise, not knowing that by nightfall, America would be at war with itself. This was not a foreign invasion. This was something far more terrifying, a civil war, where the enemy spoke the same language, prayed to the same God, and once called themselves countrymen. For decades before the first shot was fired, the United States was already at war in spirit. The North and the South lived under the same flag, but followed different realities. Northern cities roared with factories, railroads, and immigration, while the South clung to vast plantations powered by enslaved labor. Every political compromise delayed conflict, but none resolved it. Slavery sat at the center like a loaded gun, waiting for a trigger to be pulled. By 1860, the tension had become unbearable. When Abraham Lincoln won the presidency, Southern leaders believed their way of life was under direct attack. Fear spread faster than facts. One by one, states declared they would rather leave the Union than submit to a future without slavery. Secession was no longer an idea, it was a decision. And with that decision, the Union began to fracture. The spark came at Fort Sumter. Confederate cannons opened fire on a small federal garrison, and the illusion of peace collapsed instantly. The bombardment echoed across Charleston Harbor, announcing to the world that the American experiment was failing in real time. Though no one died that day, the psychological damage was immediate and irreversible. There would be no turning back now. At first, both sides believed the war would be short. Young men marched off with smiles, confident they would return home by harvest. Crowds cheered, bands played, but the first major battles shattered these illusions. At Bull Run, confusion ruled the field. Soldiers fled, civilians ran. The reality was brutal. This war would not be glorious. It would be long, violent, and unforgiving. As months passed, the scale of suffering grew unimaginable. Rifled muskets and artillery turned open fields into killing grounds. Medical tents overflowed with the wounded. Surgeons amputated limbs without anesthesia. Disease claimed more lives than bullets. Every letter from the front carried the possibility of death, and every knock on the door brought dread to families waiting at home. While the Union possessed factories, railroads, and manpower, the Confederacy relied on determination and brilliant military leadership. Southern armies fought on familiar ground, fueled by the belief that defeat meant annihilation. Commanders like Robert E. Lee inspired fierce loyalty, turning smaller forces into formidable resistance. The war became a contest not only of resources, but of will. Yet beneath the clash of armies, another war was unfolding, one fought by enslaved people themselves. As Union forces advanced, enslaved men, women, and children fled plantations in desperate search of freedom. They risked torture, death, and capture, but still they ran. Their actions forced the Union to confront a truth it could no longer ignore. Slavery was not just a Southern problem, it was the moral heart of the war. In 1863, Lincoln made a decision that transformed the war forever. The Emancipation Proclamation declared freedom for enslaved people in Confederate territory. It did not end slavery overnight, but it changed the meaning of the conflict. The Union now fought not only to preserve itself, but to destroy human bondage. The war became a moral crusade watched closely by the world. African American soldiers soon joined the fight, proving their courage under fire. Many had once been enslaved. Now they wore Union blue and carried rifles. They fought not just for victory, but for dignity, citizenship, and survival. Their bravery challenged racist beliefs and reshaped the future of the nation, one battlefield at a time. The war reached a critical turning point in July 1863 at Gettysburg. For 3 days, the largest armies ever assembled in North America collided in brutal combat. Fields turned red with blood, towns became fortresses. When Confederate forces launched a final desperate charge, they were cut down in waves. The gamble failed. The South would never recover from this loss. Months later, Lincoln stood at Gettysburg to dedicate a cemetery. His speech was brief, but its meaning was immense. He reframed the war as a test of democracy itself. A nation conceived in liberty, he said, must endure. The fallen had not died in vain. Their sacrifice demanded a new birth of freedom. After Gettysburg, the war became more ruthless. The Union adopted a strategy of total war, aiming to break the Confederacy's ability to fight. Railroads were destroyed. Crops burned. Entire cities were left in ashes. General Sherman's march through Georgia left a scar across the South, signaling that the end was approaching. Confederate soldiers grew hungry and exhausted. Supplies vanished, desertions increased. Yet many continued fighting, believing surrender meant the end of their identity. Pride and despair drove them forward long after hope had faded. The war had consumed everything they once knew. By early 1865, the Confederacy was collapsing. Union armies tightened their grip, cutting off escape routes and supplies. Cities fell one by one. The end was inevitable, but it would not come with triumph. It would come with silence. In April 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee met Union General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. There were no cheers, no celebration, just an acknowledgement of reality. Lee surrendered his army. The war was over. 4 years of bloodshed had ended. The Union was preserved. Slavery was destroyed, but the nation was shattered. Over 600,000 lay dead. Entire regions were ruined. Nearly every family had lost someone. Victory felt heavy, incomplete. Just days after the surrender, tragedy struck again. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. The man who had guided the nation through its darkest trial was gone. The future of Reconstruction, America's attempt to heal, was suddenly uncertain. The years after the war were marked by struggle. Slavery was abolished, but equality was not guaranteed. The South resisted change. Violence and discrimination replaced chains. The promises of freedom were delayed, denied, and defended at great cost. Yet the Civil War permanently reshaped the United States. The federal government emerged stronger. Citizenship was redefined. The Constitution expanded to include those once excluded. The nation survived, but at a terrible price. The war answered a question America had avoided since its founding. Could a nation built on freedom endure internal division? The answer came written in blood. Unity was not guaranteed. It had to be fought for. Even today, the echoes of the Civil War remain, in debates over race, in struggles for equality, in arguments about power and identity. The past is never fully buried. It speaks if we are willing to listen. The Civil War was not just a chapter in history. It was a warning and a reminder. Democracy is fragile, freedom is unfinished, and unity requires courage, sacrifice, and truth. America survived its greatest test, but survival alone was not victory. The war left scars that still shaped the nation's soul. Understanding it is not about choosing sides. It is about remembering the cost of division. Because when a nation turns on itself, the damage lasts far longer than the war. The American Civil War ended in 1865, but its consequences never truly did. This was the war that defined America, a war of brothers, a war of freedom, a war of identity, and a war whose lessons still matter today.